Welcome to the Clyde FC podcast, sponsored by Tony Flynn Mortgages, as we start the build-up to Saturday's huge Cinch League One match against Peterhead. Joining me on this week's show is the voice of the live stream himself, the Glaswegian Guy Mowbray, Mr. John Boyce, and Clyde's very own pop-up shop champion, Dougie Del Boy Dewar. Gentlemen, how are we?
Yeah, not too bad. Good to be back.
Yeah, great to have me back on, guys. Thank you.
And yes, that nickname is sticking, Dougie, whether you like it or
Yeah,
not.
I see that. Thanks, Shanksy.
Quite a tongue twister as well, so it's good to get me kind of going and up and running, clear the cobwebs. So yeah, there's a huge game on Saturday, gents. We will come to discuss it. We do have a slightly different feature, something we haven't done on the show before, with an interview with Colin Byiers from the Blue Toon Podcast, just to give a different angle on Saturday's game as well. However, we will cover that in depth after we listen to what Colin had to say to Boise last night. So yeah, before we get to that, let's roll the clock back some 2 weeks now. Yeah, nearly 2 weeks. As we made the short trip to face Airdrieonians. We were buoyed by a good performance and result against the table toppers Dunfermline just the week before that. I think it's fair to say the Bully Wee would continue to show real signs of improvement in performance and application, effort, etc. However, we would eventually fall to another narrow defeat. Dougie, coming to yourself first, as you were in the same role as I at the game. What did you make of the overall performance? And do you feel the same way that I do, that over the piece we probably deserved a share of the spoils?
I probably agree with that, Paul. First half, as I said to you on the day, is probably the best 45 I've seen us play since probably the last league game that we won. We really dominated Airdrie, I felt, and it was brilliant to see us putting pressure on them quite high up the park. And a lot of the chances that we made were from trying to capitalise on their mistakes. It was a true cliche in a game of two halves, as I think some of the newer guys really started to tire. And we saw some of the kind of guys going off in the second half. We kind of lost control of the game, I felt, a little bit. And it's the usual kind of sucker punch, losing that goal straight after half time when we probably had a lot of the momentum going into the break. We just kind of didn't really recover from it. But definitely some really good signs from some of the newer guys coming in that would hopefully give us some kind of green shoots of recovery going into the last kind of dozen or so games of the season.
Yeah, Boise, we were messaging throughout the first half. I was keeping you up to date as you were unable to make the game. And I was kind of giving you the play-by-play, chance after chance. Cameron Salkeld hitting the post or bar. Ross Cunningham, I think, forced a save from Josh Ray. Kyle Docherty, I got your name right this time. Coming close by a header, just couldn't quite get enough in the ball to direct a very good cross from Martin Rennie. And you did come back, I think, just on the halftime whistle and said, I hope this doesn't come back to haunt us. And true to form, it did.
Yep. Not my psychic powers at play there, just the kind of over the piece of the season. That's how it's been. We've had a lot of chances in the game, as you were messaging, and the stats show that. We seem to have improved again. Airdrie's a difficult place to go historically for us. Not won there in a wee while now. And yeah, both teams form. Airdrie up there in the playoffs. We're fighting for our lives at the bottom. You have to take your chances, and we seem to have sorted things at the back a little bit better in recent weeks. We're doing the simple things right, which is good, and that's a good foundation to build attacks off of. But we've lost that, clinical finish at the other end. Jordan Allen obviously going, but we've spoken in previous podcasts about Martin Rennie and Kyle Docherty. They look really good. So, yeah, disappointing one to take, especially after what seems to be a very good performance overall, but just not getting those all important 3 points.
Yeah, Dougie, it'll come back to yourself, and again, it's just another 90 minutes that highlights and emphasises the fine lines that we find ourselves in the wrong side of time and time again this season. It's another 1-goal defeat. If we were able to even just convert 5 or 6 of these narrow defeats, and sometimes, yeah, they might not have been deserved points sometimes, but other times it perhaps might have been, we'd be feeling a lot more comfortable going into Saturday, and we would potentially have a slightly better chance of catching 8th.
Yeah.
These moments really are just blown up in our face. It was just one heavy touch, and it was a goal for Airdrie.
Yeah, and I think if you look back across the full season, it's been those fine lines. I think we often say if we didn't have bad luck, we'd have no luck at all. Quite often, sitting and listening to you guys talking about some of the officiating decisions that go against us at times, and even on Saturday, some of the decisions were a bit wild. We didn't necessarily.
In your opinion, of course, and not
in
that.
That's not an official club opinion. Just as a supporter in the stand, there was a few questionable decisions that, thankfully, we didn't suffer from. But like you say, it's those fine lines. Looking back at the highlights, and as I said at the time, I thought that Neil could have done a lot better with it. I don't know whether it was just kind of unsighted or wrong-footed with the touch that the guy had from it, but we've lost a lot of goals from outside the box this year, and it's you can't do that. So yeah, it's even looking back at the first half, like you say, hitting the woodwork. Another day that goes in, you go into the break with a 1-0 lead, something to try and hold on to. It could be a completely different second half. So. We just need to try and turn some of those good chances that we've been making in the last few games into a bit more, just be a bit more clinical, and just try and put teams away. We saw against Dunfermline in the last 2 games that we've played since Jim came in. I would argue in spells that we were far the better team. We just haven't managed to get the all-important win to just break that horrendous streak that we've got going.
Yeah, and we won't. Every Clyde fan knows the number that we're on at this rate. It wasn't through lack of effort again on Saturday, especially kind of later in the game. We did tire. We were huffing and puffing, trying to break Airdrie down, and we did get some opportunities, albeit they were probably in the more kind of half chance bracket than some of the more gilt-edged chances we perhaps were creating in the first half. And it was really just down to a lack of composure. I felt that when we got the chance, it was not so much the wrong decision this time, it was just lacking execution. Boise, that then probably comes back to your point of that cutting edge. We just need to get that back. Scoring goals hasn't been the problem this season. It's generally been at the other end. Do you feel that is just the final piece of the jigsaw at the moment to get working again?
Yeah, I mean, to win games, you've got to score goals, as Michael Owen always says in commentary. You've got to look at it as progress that we've been able to, stop the goals going in at the other end. But the timing of our top goal scorer leaving, it's kind of funny though, isn't it? We finally sort of defensive problems and we lose our top goal scorer. It's that bad luck that Dougie was maybe talking about, but I think we can push on, and we've obviously got a big game on Saturday to try and do something with. I think the squad is looking, from performances, better, work rate wise, and in my opinion, quality as well in the key areas. So yeah, let's get behind the boys and see what we can do. I mean, we were speaking to Colin last night. I think both clubs, Clyde and Peterhead, are very similar this season, in the fact that they've come up against League One teams that are full-time, arguably championship sides. We've both tried to play our football against it and it's not worked. And against teams like that, sometimes there is no plan B, and it sometimes does come down to luck and decisions, So yeah, I think it's a big one on Saturday, but obviously we'll go on to that later in the show. But the squad looks better for me, and hopefully we can do something towards the end of the season.
For me, just to jump back in, I think the biggest positive for me from the Airdrie game was our centre half pairing. I thought Big McGeever came in and looked absolutely solid. Obviously, he's not had a lot of football, so we only really got an hour or so out of him. But he just seems like that leader that we've really been missing in there. He was throwing himself in front of everything, really putting his body on the line. There was a couple of times, flew in for a few tackles that had you wincing a little bit in terms of the distance he was flying in from. It was akin to some of the Paddy Keogh ones where he would slide in from 10 yards away, but just really prepared to put himself on the line. And I think Sula played a lot better having that confidence in who was in beside him. And that's not to disparage anybody that we've had at centre half this year, but that's where we've been losing a lot of our goals through silly errors and silly mistakes. So if we are going to stay up and want to stay in League One, we need that solid foundation to build with. I know you're saying you need to score goals, Boise, but we need to not concede any. And I think having the two of them at centre half could finally be the pairing that we're looking for this season to try and just shore things up at the back.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with a big run in as well. A lot of people will say we can still catch 8th. I think it's very, very difficult, to be honest, in my opinion. I think having that centre-back partnership of McGeever and Sula, get that tight just now, get them playing, get them used to each other, and then that's a consistency we've not had throughout the season because it was so chop and change, whether it be with 4 at the back, 5 at the back, whatever. I think we need to get a settled formation at the back, have your 2 centre-halves familiar with each other, familiar with the games. You get that solid base to build off, and then you're right. You go and look at scoring the goals. Otherwise, we'll be in a Blackpool Ian Holloway situation where every game's a 5-4, and I don't think I could take that right now.
Yeah, my hair's grey enough, boys. I agree with you on that front. Dougie, you mentioned Derek Sula. I thought he was exceptional against Airdrie. Ryan McGeever as well for the time he was on the pitch. The two of them did look as though that they had played perhaps more than the 2 training sessions together. That was very encouraging. Unfortunately, Ryan wasn't able to complete the 90 minutes, as you said. He's not played a great deal of football of late, but very, very encouraging signs. Moving into the midfield, Boise, I know you were a big fan of Cameron Salkeld against Dunfermline. I thought, again, his work rate, drive with the ball against Airdrie, it just gave us a different part to our game that we've just not had this season. So, yeah, we're getting there with the spine of the team, I think, is kind of where I'm going with this. We just need that final wee piece of the jigsaw to click back into play up front. And I do think there's a good partnership there in Martin Rennie and Kyle Dockery.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we can stop the individual errors and turn them into moments of magic up the other end, we're on for a winner. So simple as that, guys.
It's an easy game. It is an easy game.
It's no hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for us because we're not good at it. But I mean, I mean us three as well. I didn't actually mean that as a collective football club.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think Cameron Salkeld's a good example of the player we've needed for a few seasons. I said it the last time we were on. Just gives you that wee bit something extra in the middle that if the game's a bit stale, goes, runs, does the work rate, puts the tackle in, and it gets everyone up for it on our side of the ball. So good addition, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in a basement battle on Saturday. I think that midfield, if we win the second balls, get a right good chance.
Yep, get them on the back foot. I actually think quite a lot of our chances came just purely from Cameron's pressing. Actually, I think the chance that he hit the woodwork with was all just him pressing. I think McCabe winning the ball, getting the ball in the box, hitting the post. I think there was another one as well, possibly Martin Rennie's chance where defender blocked on the line with his head, and I'm surprised they knew what day of the week it was when he came back up. So yeah, that type of pressing, putting that pressure on defenders can get you chances. I mean, people have done it often enough to us this year. So let's now turn our attention to the big one on Saturday. And ahead of the game, John caught up with Colin Byiers of the Blue Toon Podcast to get their perspective and get an idea of how Saturday's opponents are seeing Saturday, probably very much akin to ourselves. And here's what Colin had to say.
Perfect. Well, thanks. And ahead of another huge game at the bottom of League One this weekend against Peterhead, we're joined by Colin Byiers of the Blue Toon Podcast. Colin, how are you, sir?
Not too bad. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm fully aware I'm behind enemy lines here slightly, so I maybe watch what I'm saying.
No, not at all. How was your weekend without League One football?
It was okay. Yeah, it was good. It was good to kind of wake up on a Sunday and then realise you're getting pumped again. So, it was good. It was a good sort of get away from it. Sometimes you forget that it can be just as much of a toll on the fans as it is the players. So it was good.
No, absolutely. Nice wee reset. Same for us as well. So I know this week on the Blue Toon Podcast, which is your own podcast centred around Peterhead FC, you were interviewing the main man for yourself, manager David Robertson. What were the main takeaways for you on how he wants to take the club forward? Obviously, Jim McInally leaving after a long term in charge. What's your first thoughts of the new gaffer?
He's obviously had a big job he's taken on. He's been open about how big a challenge it is. But I think the biggest things that we took and what we've seen from him already is he wants to get that sort of localish kind of vibe again. I think quite often the team was had too many sort of Glasgow-based Central Belt players. Need to say that there's something wrong with that, but he just likes to get that kind of local feel to it again. He started having training back at Balmoor again once a week as well, just to give that a little extra. Because the majority of the players now are from the northeast, Peterhead, Aberdeen sort of direction. So he gets that, and he's already started putting plans into place for next season already as well, which is something we were kind of critical about with the previous manager. Sometimes he was a bit reactive rather than being proactive. So it's clear that he's got plans in place. He wants to implement these, but obviously the number one priority at the minute is to get us safe and keep us in League One for next season. No,
definitely. I mean, I saw that you guys had started training back at Balmoor again. I believe it was Dundee you were training in. That's got to be a big factor in that togetherness as well, that these boys are from the northeast. I know we spoke offline just before this, and it was 11 players in and 10 out, a lot of business, and you really want that togetherness back.
Yeah, the originally, I think that when Jim, towards the end of his tenure, he got everybody training back in Dundee again, whereas previously it was the North guys would train on a Tuesday themselves, the Southern guys would train, and then it was only like once a week they were getting together. So he got them together twice a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday in Dundee. But Davey's now taking that a little bit further forward again, because I think only maybe a handful players come for the Central Belt now. So it makes sense that he tries to get it as far north as he can. And like every other part-time players within the league, they all work during the week, work during the day. So if you try and reduce the travel time and can sort of training until 10 o'clock at night and then home and then getting up the next morning kind of thing, just to try and make things a little bit easier for them and try and get that, as you said, togetherness with them as well. Certainly helps. Hopefully that's just a little bit of a change that might push things in our favour a little bit.
No, absolutely. And obviously with such a big turnaround, there's obviously things that he didn't, like what he came in and saw, or maybe just needed a freshen up. Is these changes kind of been what the fans were looking for as well? The players leaving and the new players coming in. Is it players and additions that have excited the fans?
As you can't please everybody. So I know one player might be loved by some, at the same time he might be hated by others. But I think the vast majority of Peterhead fans would agree that the recruitment in the summertime just wasn't good enough. I mean, we were bringing in players who had essentially retired for the game. And they're coming back in, weren't good enough, weren't fit enough, and it was just, results weren't happening straight away. I think 24 players Jim had brought in, 8 of them are left, so I think that tells you all you need to know about the players of the calibre or the players that were there at the time. But the players that he's brought in so far, like Kieran Shanks, for example, on loan for Arbroath, I think everybody knows how talented he is, and I think he's going to be a good player in the future. So he's attracted, I think, better quality players. It's just whether or not we've got enough games to get them to gel together and get the results, because low performances are maybe improving. It's these individual errors, individual mistakes that seems to be costing us.
Yeah, I believe Kieran Shanks get a cheeky back heel against us up at Balmoor, so we know all about him. In a very competitive League One this season, and I think Clyde have found it ourselves, you've got many teams that should be in the Championship, your likes of your Dunfermlines and your Falkirks. Did Peterhead have a kind of playing style that they were going to start the season off with, and found that maybe it's not been quite right for these full-time teams? Because I know we started with maybe a counter-attacking kind of mentality, and we've been scoring a lot of goals, just conceding more. And I noticed Peterhead haven't been scoring many. Is the playing style maybe an issue and something that David Robertson can come in and sort? And have you seen any kind of changes in that regard?
Well, I think if you sort of look back at the start of the season, Jim favoured the sort of one up front, 5 at the back, get 4 in midfield, and just have the sort of one target man up front, and try and be difficult to break down, I think would be the polite way to put it. But when you're conceding goals left, right, and centre at the start of the season, when we were getting hammered 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, quite regular at the start of the season. And when you don't score goals at the other end, it does become difficult. It wasn't enough firepower up front, put it that way. I think we brought in Ola Adeyemo, Christian Kazuka. Both guys have now left the club. Rusty had been injured. He's now gone to Dumbarton as well. So our options up front were limited, but Davies rectified that. He's got about 4 or 5 front players now. And I think he wants to try and be as expansive as he can, but at the same time try and still be difficult to break down. We're still playing with the 5 at the back. Instead of having maybe just the 1 up front, we've got maybe 2 with 1 sitting behind. So it's more of maybe a counter-attack play. He wants to try and get the ball forward as quickly as possible, but at the same time, as I said, just trying to be as difficult to beat as they can be, because, as I said, the results haven't been great. And when you come up against likes of Falkirk, Dunfermline, even likes of FC Edinburgh this season, you want to try and be in the game as long as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've been a surprise to everyone. FC Edinburgh, their playing style as well. I know you've seen it as well. Do you think they'll be up there at the end of the season?
I think what you're finding is that to use an old cliche, the cream rising to the top. I think Dunfermline are squeezing out victories. Falkirk are slowly creeping up as well. Maybe I think they'll secure a playoff place. Whether or not they'll get up after that, I don't know. But I mean, if you offered them playoff place at the start of the season, I bet they would have taken it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A big shock from them. So moving on to this weekend and the big game in League One, Peterhead and Clyde. Ended in a 1-0 win for Peterhead up at Balmoor, a place where Clyde have historically struggled. Do you see the squad or tactics changing from Peterhead at all, coming down to Hamilton? Or is it much of the same, just trying to keep the score low and get us on the break?
No, it's a weird one, because you obviously you want to try and win the game, but it wouldn't be won within the first sort of 10 minutes. But the way that we've been playing, the way that confidence has been, if we concede within the first 20 minutes, it might just it might be the worst case for us. But early on in the season, I think we were 2-0 doing quite early on, come back and got a 2-2 at the start of the season. So it's possible. However, you don't want to be going and trying to chase your tails as we have been most of the time. I think generally speaking, we've got a decent record against Clyde recently. I mean, most of them have been with Jim as the manager, obviously, but there's no reason why we can't go and do that and try and take the bull by the horns early on and try and win the game.
No, absolutely. It might be a case of who makes the least individual errors. We'll take something from it.
Could be, but I mean, that's how it might come down to. I mean, it might just be a stupid error at the back. It might be something. I mean, the game last, I think there's a game last season towards the end of Christmas or just before Christmas. I think we were 2-0 up, and Hamish Ritchie gives the ball away, and you guys get a penalty, and then all of a sudden, you're 2-1. 2-1 doing it half time rather than being 2-0, and then Good Willie gets a second straight after the break, and just little things like that might just go into somebody's favour, and that might be the difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So from a Peterhead standpoint, who are your match winners that you're looking for? Who's the players that are going to get the ball and do something with it that we should look out for?
Well, we've mentioned the match winner, Kieran Shanks. He's obviously going to be the guy to up front that's going to give us the firepower. But we've got a couple other guys. Daniel Fozio, got him for Arbroath as well. He's been pretty quiet last couple of games, expecting a performance from him coming up as well. And Jack McKeever, we've just signed him on loan as well for Martin, who was at Aberdeen last season. Was released for there, so expecting big things from them. So there's a few guys that might just be able to unlock the defence, but it's going the other way. It might be the big issue, but we just need a settled defence is what we're looking for as well. But I think if you guys can keep Shanks pretty quiet, I think you'll do well in the game. Yeah,
it's an odd situation both clubs kind of find themselves in, because we're 18, 19 points behind 8th. So we're in February and we're already looking at who can get the relegation playoff spot as, best case maybe. For the rest of the season, obviously we want wins and points, but potentially going into that, relegation playoff against a League 2 team, what are you kind of wanting from the squad? Are you just wanting performances that breed some confidence going into a potential scenario like that, or being realistic about it?
I think it's always a weird one with the playoffs, because obviously if you are 9th, you've obviously been struggling all season, whereas if you are 2nd or 3rd in League 2, you've been doing well, you've been winning games, you know how to win games, but I first and foremost we need to secure 9th and take it for there, because it might be a case of we play each other again. I think it's the 3rd last game of the season. That might be the crucial game. That might just relegate one. It might, push it to the last day or the 2nd last day, whatever it is. But, at this stage of the season, we're just looking for points, looking for wins. It doesn't matter how it comes, really. It doesn't have to be pretty as long as we get the win. When you get into the playoff, if we do get in the playoff, I think the mentality might be better, because we've secured that 9th, and the team will obviously have a gel by then, and hopefully we've got a few wins under our belt by then as well. So, we're obviously count our chickens just yet, but if we secure 9th, no matter who we play in that playoff, it will be tough.
Yeah, it's a very competitive League 2. I think this year it's throughout the whole league. There's only a few points. Have you got a prediction for the game at all, or do you tend to steer clear of these?
We usually tend to steer clear, because we normally get our predictions horrendously wrong. But obviously, I'd like to see a win for Peterhead. I think it might generate a bit more goals this time. I think it might be maybe like a 2-1 or a 3-2, something like that. But hopefully it will be a Peterhead victory in the end.
I think it'll be a close one, but hopefully a good hard fought game. And we'll see who comes out on top. Maybe a draw. But no, thanks very much, Colin, for coming on. That's a great insight into how Peterhead are doing just now. For anyone that's not listened to the Blue Toon podcast, what can they expect from you guys, and anything coming up in the near future?
Generally speaking, it's just us usually speaking about how dreadful we were the previous weekend, and clutching at straws, trying to be as optimistic as we can heading into the next game. But yeah, it's myself and Martin Smith. We try and cover as much of the Peterhead news as we can it's been happening the previous week. We're on every Monday, and we've got a few things that we'll hopefully get lined up before the end of the season. But generally speaking, it's just everything that you can think of to do with Peterhead Football Club.
No, absolutely. I had a wee listen as well. Most weeks it's a good one, keeps you involved. So go check the guys out if you haven't had a wee listen to Blue Toon podcast. Thank you, Colin. That's all for now. And yeah, until Saturday, come on the Clyde.
So yeah, that was a great insight into the Peterhead fan mindset and how they are feeling ahead of Saturday. And thank you very much to Colin for taking the time to speak to us. And you can catch the Blue Toon podcast guys on Twitter, and be sure to check them out. They do a great job for the football club and covering all their games and putting out content for their fans. And we occasionally dip in as well with some content for them when we're due to play them. So, Boise, coming to you then, what will it take for us to get this elusive victory on Saturday? A win that would move us 3 clear, effectively 4 points clear when you consider the goal difference.
Yeah, so massive game. I think, as everyone heard there with Colin, we're in a bit of a basement battle. I would liken it to, managers like to talk about mini leagues towards the end of the season. We're in a mini league right now, and there's 2 teams in it, in 9th and 10th. So yeah, massive one. Peterhead haven't won an away game, I believe, in the last 12 or all season. So we know what we always say with Clyde: when a team needs to get something, they come against us. But that hoodoo is going to break now. It'll break and we'll win. But no, what do we need to do? So it'll definitely be a battle. Peterhead don't score that many goals, and neither do we at the moment. So I'm thinking a low-scoring game, 1-0, kind of either way. But as Colin had kind of mentioned, they do have a match winner potential in Kieran Shanks, who they've got in, and he scored the winner against us a couple of weeks ago. So we need to keep him quiet. Sula and McGeever can do their business against him. But yeah, they've got a much changed team. I think since Davy Robertson came in, the fans have been impressed by the way he's wanting to showcase the team. A lot of changes as well. There's, I think, 11 players in, 10 out. So a lot of change. And
just under Robertson?
Yeah, since January.
Wow.
So that's quite a big turnover at any stage of the season. But, that'll be it'll take a wee while for them to gel together, potentially. And I know Hamish Ritchie's a player that we've kind of admired for a wee while, and he's back fit after a bad injury. He started against Alloa last week for them, so he'll be one to watch. But I genuinely believe if we do the simple things right and just stop the individual errors, we win the game. At the very worst, get a draw. But if we keep things simple, we should get some points. Again, easy as that, boys.
Yeah. So, Dougie, same question to you. What's the winning formula? You're in front of Jim Duffy right now, and Stephen Swift, the new assistant manager, I should say, and welcome to the club, Stephen. What are you going to say to them? What's the fan perspective to get this right?
For me, it's just start the same way that we have the last 2 games. We've come away from enough games this season where we've questioned the desire, and we've questioned whether or not the team were up for it, or as soon as we lose a goal or 2, we've then gone on to lose another few. I would certainly say the last few games, the desire and the application has been brilliant from the start. We came out flying against Dunfermline, got the early goal. Just unlucky that we didn't get all three from that. And the same again last week. The first half, as I alluded to earlier, is the best 45 I've probably seen us play for as long as I can remember, back when we last won a game. So it's just got to be the same again on Saturday. If we come out the traps flying and get an early goal first 15, 20 minutes, like we did the last time we played them at New Douglas Park, I would hope to think that we've got enough to see over the line. Much like us, they're completely devoid of confidence, bar the one win against us up there in the last 4 or 5 weeks ago. I'm going to go opposite from Boise. I think it'll be a goal fest. I'm going 3-2, 3-2 home win. But it's for me, just to have the same application and the same attitude that I have for the last few games. I think the freshness of the new guys coming in has probably been good for the guys who've been left behind and not had that confidence. I'll not mention the magic number, as you said, of how many we've gone without a win in the league, but for me, it is a must-win. I think we've got to win to then kickstart that momentum to try and get us to the position where if we do finish 9th and we are going into that playoff against teams who've been used to winning all season, we've got a little bit of confidence and a little bit of something about us, which certainly has looked like more like the case in the last couple of games.
Boise, I was just about to ask the question, and Dougie set it up quite nicely there. Would you then class Saturday as must win or mustn't lose?
I think it's a must win for who we're playing. Peterhead are, as Dougie said, devoid of confidence. I think if we beat them, it's not just 3 points, it's a mindset shift for the players. And, we've not won since August, so we do really need a win under our belts to help them kick on. We could maybe get some more wins. Will it be enough to, chase down 8th? Probably, possibly not. But it'll be enough to, push the players forward for a potential playoff and give them confidence playing together that if we do come up against somebody, as Dougie said, with that winning mentality, then we can at least match them. So yeah, must win for me, and I'm sure the players are being told that as well.
I reckon if we keep this show going for another 15 minutes, we might be able to get Boise to commit to us making 8th. You went from probably not to possibly not getting 8th, so you're edging closer to being a viable option.
I don't know, lads. It's a lot of points, isn't it? We've won 2 games all season, and we need to win 7 in the bounce. Come on.
Stranger things have happened, but yeah, we get very much get your point there. We'll just cover some of the match day info for those looking to come along to New Douglas Park on Saturday for the big game. Your tickets are £17 for an adult, over 65s £14, and under 18s can get in for a £5. And for that same price of a £5, under 12s can get a season pass for the remaining league games as well this season. So nice wee saving to be made there. I'm doing your commercial job for you, Dougie. Match stream info, Boise. What can people expect? Is it your cell phone comms?
Yeah, my cell phone comms. The link to the stream is in the match preview that will go out Friday night, Saturday morning. Pricing, information and times will all be there. So I do believe it's £17 for the stream, and there's a match replay as well available after the game. And yeah, just get involved if you can't make the game.
And you do get to listen to me waffle at halftime as well, pretending I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it's always a good analysis, Paul. I always appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I'll take that compliment and run. So yeah, we've got a wee bit of some good news and a positive note to finish on, which has been very hard to come by in this season, and it's for some non-football related stories, but to do with one of the players. So we would like to pass on our congratulations to Connor Duffy and his partner Sophie on the birth of their daughter Amelia. I'm sure every Clyde fan and non-Clyde fan watching this will be aware that it's been a very tough season for Connor through injury, and he's been out now since the opening day of the season. So hopefully that the little bundle of joys made it just a wee bit more worthwhile, and that long road to recovery you're that wee bit closer to. So congratulations to you and your family from all of us at the podcast, all at the club, and also on behalf of all Clyde fans. So yeah, nice wee happy note to finish on, guys.
Absolutely. Get one of those season tickets in the post for Amelia.
Absolutely. So yep, the talking is over. It's now about actions, and it all comes down to the guys that step onto the field on Saturday. It's fair to say everyone in the stands will be there. They'll sing their hearts out. If the players play their hearts out, we can get this elusive win. So let's do it. John, Dougie, thank you very much for your time and for your thoughts. And until next week, come on, Clyde.
Sing your hearts out for the Clyde.